both in the look and the operation. Plus, it sounds cooler to be a cinematographer.
And I want to make sure I answer that too. Okay,
Okay.
we're good?
Yep.
Would you talk a little bit about LEST? Explain what it is. What was your involvement?
Well, a minute ago you said, was LEST it was here when I started. And when I first came, LEST was going on. It was a basketball tournament, essentially. But everybody on campus was involved. When it was LEST weekend, everybody was involved in some way or another because there were kids on campus. In fact, at first the schools would bunk in the dorms. Maybe they would, you know.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Lutheran education school.
Lutheran elementary school
Elementary school
tournament.
tournaments.
And so it drew from the elementary schools all over the Northwest District. And it was awesome. I mean, it was a great weekend. But I don't think the campus students always really enjoyed it
We
because they
hated
were
it,
little
but
kids.
that's another story.
all over the place.
Yeah.
But for those kids and their parents and their coaches that came, they had such a great time. Oh my goodness. They would bring a bus and come for the weekend, and it was just, what a great bonding experience for those grade school kids. I mean, really amazing. So when I really got involved with LAST was when I worked for Tom Walbrecht. I worked for lots of different people on campus. You know, I was in PR. I worked for Ralph Schmold. I worked for Art Wallers. When I was pregnant with my first child, I was Art's secretary, and that was a great year. But eventually I went to the Dean of Students office, and Tom Walbrecht was Dean of Students, and I was his assistant. And we were a team. I mean, it was fun. And Tom would agonize over drawing up the brackets for the basketball teams because he knew all the congregations and all the schools, and he would set those brackets up because he wanted all the games to be competitive and be good and not have one team just roll over everybody. And he would, but most of the other stuff I did. So I laid out the books, and I did the graphic design on the stuff. I made tags, I made signage, I ordered the trophies. You know, we had trophies everywhere. And by that time, when we were running it, we were adding chess and spelling bee, and music was getting started. And I know there's even more stuff now, but we had cheerleading squad tryouts. And the one regret I have from when we moved out of here is that my son didn't ever get to play in LAST because he was just getting old enough to play basketball at Trinity when we moved. So he didn't get to be in it. Although he did, the year he was here as a student, he did ref some games.
Good.
So that was kind of cool. But yeah, LAST was amazing. The gym, it was like being in any other major tournament. You walk into that gym, and people were coming and going, and concession stands, and you know, I walked around with this big wad of keys, and I was just the boss of the weekend.
Okay, but you had equal stature then. You have a husband who's the choir director, but
I was in charge of LASC, yeah. Yeah, Tom was in charge, but he was the figurehead, and I did all the grunt work. Yeah. Yeah. And
it was really setting the record straight.
Yeah, well, yeah. It was fun. But,
so can I ask you, as a person here who was absolutely immersed in the life of Concordia, you were immersed both in the side of staff and working here and also in the arts. How did that mark you? How did that form you? Yeah.
Well, first of all, the biggest mark came with the Christy Cook's year-long tour. Because we were married in '73, and that tour was school year 75,
And you said 75, 76.
So we'd only been married for 2 years when we left and went on the road in a van with a trailer and 10 kids.
And an upright piano.
And an upright piano.
Okay.
Staying in people's homes every night.
That's right, because you didn't have the money to stay in
No.
hotels.
No, we each got a little stipend every week for toothpaste and books and pistachios and stuff we needed. You know, I bought yarn mostly, would knit in the van. But for a young couple, it was a struggle that we didn't really anticipate, but we had to deal with, in that we didn't get private time. We were in a van all day with college kids, and I was really their age.
All evening.
Well, yeah, and evening we were guests in people's homes, and we had to, so if we had a disagreement or a conflict, we had to suck it up and wait till the weekend when we were in a hotel room when we could actually work it out. And so you learned how to deal with stuff. I mean, it was a trial by fire in a way, but it made us it made a stronger relationship.
So there was the larger Concordia community, and then there was this small 12 with you
Yeah.
two, 14 people.
Or the choir was also a small community. The first couple of years, at the end of the year, the choir party we'd have what he called tube steaks, hot dogs and barbecue. But choir parties, they eventually ended up in our house sometimes, or, the choir kids would babysit for our kids.
Yeah.
Or before that, when we were both working at school, I would have somebody from the choir come and clean the house for me, and so there were always choir kids involved. I remember other kids from those years, but the choir kids are the ones that I really remember and knew. And I can remember being in the balcony of St. Michael's one year, and the choir was singing, and I would usually sit with the choir or close by, and just sobbing because those kids that I love were leaving. They were graduating, they were going away, and I felt so close to them that I didn't want them to go. And it was like a family thing, and it happened over and over. So by the time we left here, that was just such an integral part of our life that after we were away from it, I didn't anticipate that. I was so sad for a couple of years. There was nothing to replace that. It's not possible to replace it. And then the community of the faculty, because when I first came, because of my status as a parish worker, I had this limbo. I was not really a faculty member, but they let me go to faculty retreat the first couple of years. And bless E.P. Weber's heart, because I was a woman and because I had learned shorthand in my business classes, at the faculty meetings that I got to attend, I got to take the minutes. I remember one time.
What an honor.
And I could do shorthand, but I couldn't always read it if I didn't.
I could write it, but I couldn't read it.
Yeah. And I remember one meeting, he would get so frustrated with things, and he would say, "What did we say? Lynette, read that back to us." And I was trying to read it. He said, "You're mumbling." I said, "I'm mumbling because I don't know what I'm saying." It was terrifying. So that didn't last very long, but it was an interesting experience to be in those faculty meetings and just see how they worked. But the faculty became our family. They were our mentors. One of the biggest things that I remember being impacted by faculty was Dr. Scheck. And it was just at a casual thing in somebody's home, and I don't even know where we were, and that was before we were even married. I remember just sitting in front of a fireplace with Scheck's, and Dale was there, and I don't know who else, and just feeling like I was being treated as a peer, as an equal. And I was only 21. I was a kid. I was like a student, and yet they treated me like I was just part of them. And that was such a great feeling of welcome. I was just absorbed into the community without question. And that was the other thing I really missed when we left, because when you're friends that you go to coffee with and hang out or have minds like Dr. Swalderhaus and Dick Reinish and John Scheck and everybody else, the wit that great intellect has, they were funny because they were just so smart, and the love and the grace of the community, and just the acceptance of everybody. It's just an incredible way to live, and I was very fortunate to be part of that. So it totally marked me. And then the choir, now, after being gone, I was here 20 years. And then we were in San Diego for 16 years. And now, as my husband retired, we started going to his reunions. And he went to high school at St. Paul, I went to junior college at St. Paul, and then he went to River Forest. So we've gone to a lot of 50-year reunions recently. And I was singing in the choir because I sang in a Concordia choir in San Diego for 16 years because I had Dale as a choir director for 16 years. Everybody else only got him for 2 or maybe 4, and I got to sing in his choir for 16 years, and it was he treated that church choir just like a college choir in a lot of ways, in his teaching and the diction and the blend he would build. And that's his real skill, is taking all these different people and making them into a cohesive unit that can make music together. He's really good at it, and I got to be in it.
You may have just answered my question, but my question was, how was life different than what you expected? You were going to either marry a pastor or then the dude in California, but now you have spent a lifetime immersed in the arts and music, and you're still, you have your own vocation in the arts in a different way. But do you want to say something about that? Life immersed in the arts.
I was very fortunate. I had parents who sent me to piano lessons, so I had a really strong 12-year piano history before I got to college. And what little I had, you know, with the organ and the choir I got to be in college, made me a good wife for Dale, because I speak the language. I understand his passion. I love organ music. I love classical music. I love choral music. And it would be difficult, I think, to not love that and be married to someone who has that as their passion. So I feel very blessed. The high points of my life in worship, there have been so many of them, those mountaintop worship experiences that lots of people never get unless they go to a convention of some kind, and they get it once or twice, and I've gotten it over and over again. And it's wonderful. It's just I don't know how to describe it. It's just an amazing experience to get to worship in a way that's so profoundly meaningful and beautiful at the same time. The campus worship at Concordia in the 70s was like that, because the campus communion services were wonderful. And now I get to do it at my son's church, and it's just, the transition is pretty amazing. There's just so much of it, it's hard to describe, but I'm a very fortunate person.
Yeah, and I just wanted to ask you like a legacy question.
Okay.
What do you think is the great legacy that you and Dale would gift to the next generation? Anything that you'd like to be remembered for? Or even speaking for him, or for you as a team, either one.
He touched a lot of lives, and I got to help him. And that, and it may sound old-fashioned, but I think that's my calling, is, especially now that we're retired and I don't have to go to work anymore. That's my job, is to help him do what he does, and that's okay. That's okay with me. He was very good at allowing me independence to do what I want, and to try things, and take classes, or to play with my art, or go have a different job. When I left Concordia, this is not answering your legacy question yet, but when I left Concordia, I got a job off campus finally after our kids were growing up a little, because it was too much. Because I was still on the administrative side and he was still on the faculty, and we would both bring our frustrations home, and then at night all we talked about was Concordia. And it got to be that was the only thing we ever did. And so we decided I needed to go somewhere else. We had just something else to talk about.
Okay.
But he let me do that. He let me. I had weird jobs. I got to work in a bakery and help make wedding cakes, and I worked at a lift truck company, and I worked downtown in an advertising agency, and not that those were anything that I went out and got a job. I found
You're
a job.
Creative and adventurous like you.
Yeah, he would just it was okay with him. So, but I always had that sense that he didn't force me to be a certain kind of way. When we were dating, he told me he thought he was going to marry a sweet little hausfrau that liked to cook, and I do like to cook, and that was important in our relationship. But I didn't turn out to be a sweet little housewife who liked to iron. In fact, I stopped ironing his shirts after we got married. I did it when we were dating, but I didn't after we got married.
You ironed his shirts when you were dating?
Yes, because
this is important detail.
Okay, well, this happened when we were when I was single, and he had a student doing it, and she had graduated, and he was talking to somebody about he needed to find another co-ed to iron his shirts. And I said, well, I'll do it, because he was paying $25 a shirt, so I needed the money. And then he asked me that fall if I was interested in going to the symphony, because he was going to get his symphony series, and he didn't like to go by himself. He wanted to know if I said, well, yeah, but I can't do that right now. I don't have enough money to buy the whole thing all at once. He said, well, you can work it off in your ironing. And so he bought my symphony ticket, and I never did pay him for the symphony ticket. Gradually, that was one of the regular things we did, was going to the symphony when we were dating. So I never did have to pay for the ticket. Our legacy is all of the people who are out there who, like you, who were his students, who were students and now are friends that we are still in contact with, that were part of the choir. That, I don't know, the choir, I think it was the thing that was, his heart was there and it still is.
You both share the gift of the love of music. That marked each of you. We could see that as students towards each other, and then that was a gift towards us too, the gift of the love of music.
The other thing with maybe, in our life, what's been important has been hospitality. In fact, we put it in our wedding vows. And the people have been hospitable to, we stayed in a lot of people's homes over the years who, as guests, and so we have always, hospitality has been important to us, so we like to have people come. And we don't get that so much in the Midwest now because don't see as many people, but having kids come and stay or gifting people with meals and parties, that was some fun thing for us to do too. We're very social. You know, like he said with he likes that group thing. I do too. So it was we were a good, God knew what he was doing when he put us
Continuing
together.
to be a good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for talking.
Yeah, well, it's not hard to get me to talk.
Any final words? Any last thing? I feel really good. I so appreciate what you shared in the stories.
Yeah, I don't. The best thing we've done is our kids. We're very proud of our son and his ministry and our daughter. And
Yeah, they were incorporated into that too. Remember when Jonathan used to stand on the front pew at St. Michael's and conduct behind his dad?
Yeah, and
I remember that.
One Christy Crook's trip to Hawaii, we took them with us, and they had little matching shirt and dress, and they would stand up and sing when the saints go marching in with the group. They didn't know their mics weren't turned on, but Laura was really angry when she learned that as an adult, but her mic had not been on.
Okay, is that a tip? How to incorporate your kids and yet be authentic with them.
Well, yeah, don't tell them that, because she thought she was really performing, and she turned into a performer, and that's what she does. So that was all part of their experience.
Thank you.
I'll tell you one other story.
Okay,
about
quick another story.
community. When Laura was little, I don't know if you remember this. When Laura was 14 months old, she was
We have 2
very
minutes.
sick. She was in the hospital with meningitis. She got extremely ill. The time when she was in the hospital was when we had sold our house and we were moving. I don't know how we moved, I really don't, but people from Concordia, my friends, Pat Coonerton, a bunch of other people who I don't know who was, because I wasn't there, packed my house and moved me because Laura was in the hospital. That's kind of, it wasn't just a feel-good community, it was real. They just stepped in and did what. Yeah. So,
Thank you. No, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
yeah, that was a horrible time, but that was a great gift they gave me.
It's a marking time.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Good. Thank you so much.
This is fun.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing this.
So welcome. I think we're done.